Welcome. This is Monty. I'm doing my typical 5 mile walk. We're going to do something slightly different today. We got a nice, beautiful environment as usual. It's probably 75, 76 degrees out here when I'm not in the shade, that is. Um, Very nice environment for walking and getting some exercise and getting some fresh air, that's for sure. Um, let's see. So right now we're in the shade, but we're going to be entering the sunlight, the sunlit part. If I can keep my bottle from making so much noise as it clinks back and forth. Anyway, we're going to do this healthy. We're going to call this particular session "Healthy Tips for Today," and the reason is because a lot of times I don't distinguish exactly what I'm doing on my 5 mile walk, and it's important, on occasion for you guys to know what I'm talking about before you actually have to look at the video or listen to it or something. Sometimes it's helpful to know what the video is all about. But this particular session is called Healthy Tips for Today. Stress yourself out. Now, the reason why we entitled it Stress Yourself Out is simply because a lot of times what happens is we have different stressors in our life. Some are definitely better than others. There's something called chronic stress. Chronic stress is typically negative and it's typically bad for you. Chronic stress might be a boss that harasses you. For those of you who have jobs and work for a living, hello Todd, how you doing? So yeah, if you have a boss at work and they're constantly hounding you to get things done and this and that and the other, that could lead to what we call chronic stress, meaning that every single day you have to deal with this type of stress. That's typically negative, and that's typically bad for you because it has emotional consequences, and which later lead to physiological consequences, and that's typically negative, and we don't want that type of stress on an ongoing basis, that is. Now, some of the good stressors might be when you go to the gym and you work out for an hour, or you work out for 45 minutes, or for some people like myself, you may work out for 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours, maybe even 5, depending. That's a different type of stressor. For the most part, people are going to be able to do 1 hour, 1 hour and a half at the most and get away with it, and that's going to be just fine for a lot of people. I'm just experimenting. I'm a glutton for punishment, and I like to push myself to the extreme so I could be in the gym for 4 hours or 5 hours, and that's a different type of stressor. That's a physical stressor, physical challenge or a stressor, and another type of stress might be nutritional. And biologists and nutritionists, for instance, doctors are just starting to look into nutritional challenges that we can present in our life. In other words, intermittent fasting, for those of you who don't know, is actually when you when you just stop eating rather for a short period of time. In other words, like one day, just for 24 hours, maybe even as little as 8 hours. Intermittent fasting basically is another type of stressor, a nutritional stressor that forces you to burn existing fat, calories. Anytime you stop eating for whatever period of time, your body starts to metabolize a little bit of the things that it already has in it. So that's a good stressor, a good nutritional challenge for you, for instance. Also, time-restricted fasting is another new concept that a lot of people are trying. The time-restricted fasting basically has more to do with not eating for an abbreviated period of time, like 12 hours or something like that, 12 hours or less. You want to eat or consume all the food that you normally would consume in a certain period of time. And then after that, you don't want to eat anymore until the next interval occurs. So look into time-restricted fasting in addition to intermittent fasting, and try to make sure you understand the difference. I practice intermittent fasting at least every Sunday. I don't eat at all for 24 hours, and I'll probably look into time-restricted fasting, whereby we'll try to consume most of our meals, including breakfast, dinner, whatever, within a 12-hour period. According to time-restricted fasting, we actually have enzymes in our bodies. In other words, all of our metabolic functions are time sensitive according to when there's light and when there's stimulus, indicating that it's time for us to be awake and be out moving and about. And a lot of our biological systems are associated with this timing mechanism. In other words, we're not nocturnal like cats or some of the nighttime animals. We do most of our activities during the day, the waking hours, including eating and such. So a lot of our biological systems, including enzymes and digestion and all these things, are actually on this circadian clock. And that's what time-restricted fasting pretty much is based upon. The idea that while we're awake, we're consuming, we're digesting, we're eating, etc., etc. And then when we sleep, then it's better to not eat anything else, to not introduce anything else into our stomachs, because that starts the metabolic processes all over again. And your body really should have some times when it's actually resting, as compared to look into both of those. But the subject of stressors has more to do with not only physical stressors like going to the gym, but also they're learning. I think this term is called Hormesis. I think Homesis. Hormesis. I have to look at the correct spelling and pronunciation. I'll leave a link, but look up. Let me see if I can find it. Just 1 second. Every once in a while with the good stressors, like extreme cold temperatures, take a cold shower for 10 minutes, take a hot sauna for 20 minutes at a time, once or twice a day or something like that. Various nutritionists and sports doctors, for instance, working with professional athletes, have found out that runners and professional athletes, football players or whatever, they actually benefit greatly by the extreme heat exposures from the sauna for 20 minutes at a time, once or twice a day. What happens is they noticed that the professional runners, they actually were able to run longer, run faster or harder as a result of the exposure to the extreme heat in the saunas. And the same with the people who subject themselves to extreme exposures to cold as well. Taking a cold shower, a cold swim in a pool or something like that. It's a lot of you may be familiar with the Polar Bear Club, I think they're called, where once a year or something they jump in one of the coldest lakes or something, and they have an annual ritual doing that. And a lot of people are trying to figure out what are they doing, is it just fun and games or whatever. But actually what's happening, whether or not they know it or not, what they're doing is they're creating more mitochondria, which actually prepares their bodies for more extreme cold. So initially, if you do it for the first time, you're subject to the effects of the extreme cold. In other words, it has more of an impact on you, and you could be very cold or something. But they're finding out that if you do it over and over again, what typically happens is sooner or later, you build up enough mitochondria and you're benefiting more as a result of the continued extreme cold and heat exposure. So that's Hormesis, a new concept that a lot of medical practitioners, biologists, nutritionists, sports doctors are just finding more and more, finding out about. What else? Nutrition. We talked about nutritional stressors, whereby you try to fast, either using the intermittent fasting method or you use the time-restricted fasting method. One or the other is fine. And also when you go to the gym and you get a vigorous workout, the body temperature is raised significantly to the point where you're sweating, and that actually stresses your body, sends it into a type of shock, if you will, which you benefit from significantly because the body is building up a type of response to that in preparation for the next time and the next time after that. So that is good for you. And so that's what we're focusing on today. The health tip for today. Stress yourself out, but stress yourself out not with chronic stress, but with the good types of stress, either through nutritional challenges like fasting or physical challenges like working out, running, or even try out exposing yourself to cold temperatures in your swimming pool, in your bathtub, in your shower, or maybe the hot temperatures in the shower, the sauna, or something like that. And they're finding out that the mitochondria that's produced, which is more abundant than the bacteria in our bodies, actually is a key to keeping inflammation down and thus inhibiting Alzheimer's. So you see a lot of people who grow old prematurely, they can't remember, certain cognitive functions start to go first. That's an issue that's brought about typically when you have a lack of mitochondria and a lack of mitochondria that's actually quality or weak in a weakened state. We want to have strong and abundant mitochondria in our body, and that way when we get older, that we still have our cognitive functions, whether it be memory, whether it be just learning new things or whatever, and that usually is brought about by these, as I mentioned, the nutritional and the physical challenges, in addition to the hot and cold differences in our body. That would help out a great deal. So anyway, that's the healthy tip for today. And as I find out more and more stuff, I'll bring it to your attention. Do your research, do further investigation, and that way we'll all hopefully live a more healthy and a more productive life, especially as we get older. So wrapping up my 5-mile walk, and I'm trying to stay as fit as I can so that I can live a long and a productive life, and hopefully so will you guys. So anyway, we'll talk later, and I'm going to be wrapping up my walks and go walk so I can go home and eat and relax and do some more research into this. Seems to be very interesting. You guys have fun. Thanks. Take care. Bye.